It all started when the girl was reading an ebook and imagined what it would be like to visit a world where there are beautiful dresses, luxury, and people who always smile. She looked at the pictures of the main characters and thought, why in the real world there are no such beautiful people that you want to admire? It is not surprising that while her real life was full of grayness and problems, she wanted to dive into the world behind the phone screen for at least a moment. Maybe because she wanted it so much. Or maybe there is some other reason. Still, she somehow ended up in this world. The girl just blinked her eyes, and a moment later, she found herself in another body and in another place, just as she wanted it. While she has the usual thoughts about studying in her head, there is a completely new life around her, to which she will have to adapt very quickly. Some girl literally burst into her room. She is indignant that the lady still hasn't gotten ready and pulls her by the hand to finally leave. Since she doesn't understand what's going on and where she needs to hurry, the girl asked where she's pulling her and why such a hurry. Elian thought that the girl was joking or a little crazy, but still reminded that they actually needed to go to the Royal Night Guard to sign contracts. She just saw her face and immediately understood where she had ended up. And she had just recently seen this heroine on her mobile phone and couldn't imagine that she would see her like this, right in front of her. Judging by the way the lady addresses her, the girl has taken over the body of a minor character, Ludia Arlil Mertens. And this beautiful lady's name is Elian Schnerelia Feliatine. She says that if they are lucky, they might even see His Highness the Crown Prince at the training ground. They say that his beauty is out of this world. Elian talks about him as if she dreams of becoming his girlfriend. She can't wait for His Highness the Crown Prince to see her, fall in love, and immediately confess his feelings. Although, for now, it sounds too fantastic. But she wants to believe in it. Only here, Elian is the character who will be punished for persecuting the Crown Prince. Moreover, Ludia will also be punished on charges of aiding her persecution. And this is already a little alarming. It's good that the girl remembered this almost immediately. Only she is also Ludia's only precious friend, with whom they are literally almost always together. Elian started to drag her friend and says that if they come early, they can also inspect the training grounds. And Ludia asked her to wait because she needs time to think. The friend doesn't understand what to think about here. She also doesn't understand that the lady got into this body a couple of minutes ago and is not yet ready for such a crazy rush. She didn't even have time to get used to her new appearance. And already she had to run somewhere, look at something, and pretend that everything was okay. They managed to quickly call a carriage, arrived early, as Elian wanted. They were met by a servant who immediately showered them with compliments because they really looked very good. For Ludia, the time on this road passed unnoticed. She still hasn't had time to get used to this body, and in general, she can't keep up with the developments. It's good that I have a friend nearby. It seems like you can trust her, and if something happens, she will definitely help and advise. And the girl also tries not to think about the fact that she doesn't have the best fate. If everything goes according to the plot, she won't live long. And if she wants to live in this world longer than she should, she'll have to figure it out as best she can. She is offended that it was possible to get into the body of any other character, whose fate is easier. But since this is the case, there is no choice. You just need to accept the new reality, pull yourself together, and not give up. The assistant says what time they have made a long journey. They need to go where they need to go so that they don't get lost at this time. Of course, the girl agreed, because she had no desire at all to look for the right room in this huge estate. She thanked him for the offer and thought to herself that it was very pleasant to deal with him. She had never been treated like that before. She is not used to such manners. But in this world, it is absolutely normal and not at all a luxury, as it seems to her for now. Elian, although she is used to this, is still very pleased that a person, although not obliged, still treats her with respect. And after all, they may see each other for the first and last time in their lives. They thanked him for the warm welcome, and he began to feel embarrassed because usually no one thanks him for this, and such politeness is taken for granted. Meanwhile, Ludia asks how far is the training grounds from here because she doesn't see anything like that nearby yet. And her friend replied that she heard that his crown prince uses them sometimes, so she wonders what kind of place it is. As the girl remembers from the original novel, it is here that Elian and the crown prince meet for the first time, and Elian falls in love with him at first sight. And Elian, having fallen so deeply in love, begins to mercilessly pursue him in order to make him his forever. If we leave everything like this and go with the flow, Ludia will die very quickly. And in order to avoid this, we need to do something urgently. Suddenly, she turns to these two and says that she, of course, really appreciates the offer to give a tour. But this time they are here for a completely different reason, and it would be better to arrange a walk another time when they are free. And she also mentally apologized to her friend because she still wants to live, and she can't allow everything to go according to the original plot, especially since she will do it for their common good. Since they came so early and they have free time, it seems to her that it would be better to look through the documents. But Elian is already starting to dislike this. She imagined everything a little differently. The girl took her friend's hand and thought that if Elian and the Crown Prince did not meet, then she would not have to die. The girlfriend already understands that something is wrong here, takes her hand away from her, and is already starting to get really angry. She came here with the goal of meeting her likely future husband, and then there was some kind of abrupt change of plan. She doesn't understand what's going on, why Ludia is interfering with her, so she turns to the adjutant to leave them alone for a while. Of course, the guy is not against it, but in the meantime, the girl is already worried that Elian will now be indignant and they will quarrel. The girl asks why they stopped, and her friend looks at her with a displeased look. She has only one question. She asked directly if Ludia had any problems with her, because otherwise she doesn't understand how to understand her behavior. She asked not to tell her that she was sulking only because she made her prepare the contracts alone, although they had always agreed that Ludia would do it herself. And then she came a little closer, touched his shoulder, and reminded him that besides all this, they were also friends. Which means Ludia should be helping and encouraging her from behind the scenes. But so far, she doesn't see anything like that. Using sweet words and clever manipulation to coax the naive Ludia into getting what she wanted. This was the alien method, according to Ludia's recollections. But now she won't be able to manipulate her so easily, because at the very least, Ludia wants to survive. And for that, she will have to interfere with her friend in some things, including for her own good. She has no intention of taking revenge on behalf of Ludia, but she also doesn't intend to just sit and take this treatment with constant orders and demands that everything be done the way Elian wants. Now she will only focus on her own problems that need to be solved. And if that means arguing a little with her friend, she will do it. In the end, she thought that first she needed to at least survive today safe and sound, and she would think about everything else sometime later. The girl took a step to the side and ran into some guy who had very quietly appeared nearby. He apologized to her for blocking her path, and he is also much taller than her, so she had to raise her head to look at his face. The very second she looked into his eyes, she realized that this was the same crown prince that her friend was crazy about. She was even afraid to imagine how Elian envied her now. And it also turns out that he saw her first, and not the girl who dreams of becoming his wife. Now, the main thing is that Elian does not get offended by this situation, although this is quite possible. The girl already feels her breathing down her neck and envies her so much that she is ready to push her aside and take all the attention to herself by any means necessary. Elian began to very slowly and carefully approach them closer, without noticing it herself. If you look from the side, then she is literally drawn to this person like a magnet, as if they were made for each other. Ludia feels terribly awkward. She even stepped aside so that the prince's attention could switch to her friend. And she was also very surprised that she suddenly felt a tremor throughout her body, although she was absolutely indifferent to this person. Apparently, her subconscious starts falling in love with him before she does. She's probably bothered by the fact that her friend wants to be with him, so she tries not to look at him too closely. Only now, he hardly looks at Elian, but he doesn't take his eyes off her. The situation is starting to get heated. Meanwhile, an assistant came up and reminded them that it was time for them to leave, and that they did not have time for long greetings. The crown prince said goodbye to the ladies, began to leave, and at that moment, when a light wind blew, she felt his scent and almost lost consciousness. He smells so nice that she already unconsciously falls in love with him, probably even more than her friend. She couldn't even imagine that he was so cute, and this could lead to a real fight for his attention between them. Unless, of course, the girl forces herself to give in to her friend. She, of course, understood that he was a very handsome man, but she didn't think that she could like him so much. And then she remembers that Elian is standing next to her. She slowly turned her in her direction and was already expecting to see an ominous look. But surprisingly, the girl is absolutely calm. She was apparently so charmed by the principal that now she doesn't have a drop of hatred inside. it's as if she didn't notice anything. Elian starts repeating the same thing over and over again, that it seems she has fallen in love and can no longer live without this person. Although the prince didn't even really look at her, the girl asked Ludia if she saw how he looked at her. She somehow noticed his interested look. Although in fact, there was nothing like that, it even sounds a little funny. Elian is already imagining how quickly he will propose to her after this meeting, and his friend doesn't even know what to say to that. She simply decided not to upset her, kept silent, and Elian began to say that her friend need not worry, because even if she becomes part of the royal family, they will still remain friends. She is talking to His Highness the Crown Prince, or rather, to her future husband, and together they will definitely find a husband for her too. Then she turned around very suddenly, grabbed her hand and asked her to promise that even if it was impossible, Ludia will help her get together with the Crown Prince. And she also looked at her with such a look as if she now has no right to refuse or even remain silent. Ludia is just now realizing that her friend has completely gone crazy. She has painted some unimaginable picture in her head, although in reality this is still a long way off. What can we say if the Crown Prince even knows the name of Ludia, but hasn't really met her yet? So as not to upset her with this, the girl simply kept silent because you never know how she will react to this. Meanwhile, they are already in the right office. The girls did not even have time to greet this man as he began to condemn their outfits and also said that he could not understand whether they came to sign a contract or to a party. He asked Elian to answer this question, but the girl will still be impressed after the prince, so she is silent and smiles. Meanwhile, Ludia was also too focused on the Crown Prince that she completely forgot what was happening in the original story at that moment. Everything was something like this. Right after this phrase of his friend started asking how he could criticize her outfit because it was her personal choice, which does not concern anyone, and then began to cancel the contract, and thus the deal that they had been preparing for a very long time fell through. With a high probability, now everything can happen exactly as it should be. But Ludia has already begun to think how to fix the situation. This is her first chance to try to change the plot. The girl thought that if she doesn't do it, then they will both regret it. The same second as the friends started to get indignant, as in the original story, Ludia came a little closer to them and started saying that her friend is attending an engagement ceremony tonight. So she asks to understand that it's not because they're taking this deal lightly. They just prepared for the dress code in advance. That's all. And then she continued that the reason they came here today was to supply high-quality ore to the nightly order. The Empire has maintained peace for a long time, but it believes that especially in times like these, it has a duty to develop military power. Producing anything from high-quality raw materials directly affects the strength of the army and the safety of the knights, and they are confident that no one can provide ore of higher quality than they can. That's why the girl asks him to seriously consider this contract, because it is equally beneficial for each of them, and none of them will find a better partner. Ludia accidentally started to bow to him, and then remembered that nobles never do this and became very embarrassed. She felt terribly awkward, because even from their looks, it was clear that they were slightly perplexed as to why she did this. Even her friend looked at her with a strange look, as if she herself felt ashamed of her. And immediately after that, the atmosphere in the office changed dramatically. The man asked her to raise her head and not make him look like a terrible person, although she didn't mean anything like that. Then he asked her name, to which the girl replied that she was Ludia of the Murden family, a provincial noblewoman, not yet active capital. After that, he said that he understood everything, then asked to sit down, which means that he is ready to discuss the terms of the contract with them. Because if it weren't so, he would have just kicked them out of here and asked them to never come back again. Since the document was already fully compiled and verified, all they had to do was put their signatures. And then he remembered that he had never introduced himself to them. He was the commander-in-chief of the Royal Knights, Marquis Roman Bernhardt. And then the girl began to remember what the title Marquis meant. A whole scheme appeared in her head to quickly remember. A Marquis is a person who has enormous power, less than 10 in the Empire, which means that he is not just some nobleman, but a very respected person. She can't believe that they came to sign a contract with such a person. While she didn't know it, it was somehow easier, and it also means that their trading group will be under the protection of the Royal Guard. The girl also noticed that her friend was silent all the time, as if she was afraid to say something unnecessary, although most likely she had already managed to get offended by something. Meanwhile, the man insists that she should not hesitate to sign this contract, and also said that he hopes that this deal will strengthen the bond between their trading group and them. It's strange, but it was at that moment that Ludia felt that she had done something outrageous, although maybe she was just winding herself up. Meanwhile, they are finally returning back, although they didn't have to exert themselves much. They are still exhausted and very tired. In the middle of the road, my friend remembered that she needed to go somewhere, so she was dropped off halfway. And in the meantime, the girl thinks that if it weren't for Ludia's memory, today's success might not have happened. The only reason she was so diligent in making the deal was entirely because of Ludia, who worked harder than anyone else instead of Elian. Ludia very often remained in the shadow of her friend's brilliance, so she really wanted to shine the light on her at least today, and she succeeded. The road back turned out to be a little longer. She had already managed to sleep. Think about the future and sleep again. Meanwhile, it's finally over. Ludia is home. She was met by assistants and parents who immediately began to praise her for doing well. It was so nice that words cannot describe it. The parents were so happy, as if she had solved all their problems that day and not just persuaded that man to sign a contract. And you can also notice that she looks very much like her mother. They are like sisters who are difficult to tell apart. She enjoys looking at these happy people. And to make it always like this, she is ready to try harder and harder. Even though they are not her biological parents, but only according to the script, the girl still has very tender feelings for them, as if she had lived with them her whole life. Meanwhile, that man has already gathered his assistants around him and is praising that young girl who impressed him with her persistence and self-confidence. He calls her much better than those useless officials who drop papers everywhere and only waste his time on useless conversations. The assistant tried to hint to him that it is wrong to call officials like that, but the man does not care because it is true. He even thinks of supporting her in some other ways. If necessary, he can even introduce her directly to another knightly order. In fact, the assistants had not seen the master praise anyone for a long time. This is a huge rarity. There were literally a couple of such cases. The prince was also invited to this conversation. He even admitted that he was interested in Ludia, but not as a business partner, but simply as a person. Only if the girl herself or her friend knew about it, then things would have started, probably for the best that he never told her anything. The long-awaited evening has already arrived. This day in the body of another person turned out to be much harder than one could have thought. She has solved a lot of things and, in principle, already more or less understands what her life is like. Ludia is very happy that she is finally alone. She dreamed about it since the morning, and now it happened. Of course, what she likes most here is that there are very caring and kind people around, with whom she feels incredibly comfortable. This applies to both her parents and the servants, who do their job absolutely flawlessly. So far, surprisingly, she hasn't even thought once about trying to return to her past life, because at least it's more fun here, and the conditions are much better. Even if she has to live much less here than in that life, she will choose to stay here, because it is better to have quality but little than hard and a lot. In any case, it is worth remembering that there are problems here too. For example, she somehow needs to find a balance in order not to quarrel with her friend because she liked the one with whom Elian is in love. With all this, she needs to somehow maintain friendship with her, because if they are apart, it will not be possible to save the lives of both. Unlike the original story, she managed to make a deal with the Knight's commander, which could mean that if this could be changed, maybe my friend can change too. But we can only hope for that. In any case, we will have to offer some efforts. The next day came. Ludia didn't even have time to get out of bed. Elian was already breaking into her room, unable to sit still. She comes to her and asks if she becomes the crown princess. Does that mean she will eventually become the empress? If this happens, she promises to make her friend her imperial concubine, and also admitted that she thought about it all night and didn't get enough sleep. Imperial concubine means unofficial wife, but the highest ranking among concubines. But no matter how she embellishes it, she still remains a concubine, and that's not quite what she's interested in. The girl didn't quite understand. Did her friend really want her to receive such a status? It was very unexpected to hear from her. Ludia never ceases to be amazed and watch as her friend goes more and more crazy every day. She has some strange thoughts, ideas every time, that she doesn't even have the strength or desire to comment on anything. She still can't be convinced. Elian asks her to think about it because if she becomes empress, she will be very busy and they will hardly have time to see each other. And also, since she knows nothing about politics, Ludia, as her milkmaid, will be able to deal with the state affairs and she will take care of the management. This way, Ludia won't be bored and Elian will be free. The girl sees mutual benefit in this and asks how she likes this impeccable plan, what she thinks about it. The girl doesn't even know how to say it correctly that the guy didn't even shake her hand. And she's already imagined something so bad that it's already too much. And she also has the impression that her friend is trying to set her up. But she does it very carefully, as if by accident. Ludia told her that she would probably get a job somewhere else and that she was not interested. She even took her hand away from her because this was too much and she wasn't going to sign up for this. Elian was very surprised, as if she had offered very favorable conditions, and her friend began to refuse, and she does not understand what the reason is. Although, if she herself were in her place, she would have done exactly the same. Meanwhile, the girl notices a letter on her nightstand. She has already been told what it is. She takes it in her hands. And then she looked at her friend and asked if she had received an invitation to the engagement at the Masquerade of a Siren, to which she replied that, of course, she had already even managed to send a letter confirming that she would come. And she also said that she heard rumors that the crown prince would be there. So that's one of the reasons why she should be there. Then she asked if Ludia would be there too, because she always said that she didn't like such parties. The girl replied that she really never liked them, but she changed her mind after all. They don't happen often, and suddenly there will be something interesting there. The engagement, hosted by the Marquisate of Asiren, will take place over 2 days. On the first day, the engagement ceremony of the Marquis's eldest son. And after it, there will be a masquerade ball, which promises to be no less interesting than the first part of the event. And this also means that there is a high probability of the crown prince coming. Ludia would also like to see this person again and does not want to miss this opportunity. And in the meantime, they have already come to this event. Ludia thinks that the son of the Marquis and the hereditary principal were fellow students under the same master. But it's not clear yet what this means. Her thoughts are too mixed up, and this is not surprising. Meanwhile, she looks around, notices a friend having fun with other girls. She has already met almost everyone here. To be honest, Ludia would like to go her separate ways in life with her friend right now, but it would be very disadvantageous. Unfortunately, their families are tied to business, and it will be difficult to get rid of her right away, although I would really like to. Meanwhile, she thinks that she needs to think about a plan to do everything right and quickly. Suddenly, she wondered if the crown prince had already arrived. Maybe he was already here, just hiding in a mask like everyone else. Since the crown prince had not yet arrived, she decided to go outside to get some fresh air, because she would hardly be able to do it later. It was very stuffy in the room. It was impossible to breathe normally there. Here in the fresh air, she feels much more comfortable. Since even here you can hear the music, Ludia started singing along, and she also doesn't look around and doesn't notice that someone has approached her. Then she accidentally looked to the side and saw a familiar silhouette, but she was scared in vain. The girl thought it was the crown prince, but he had a slightly different hairstyle and a different eye color. The guy introduced himself as the second son of Count Brinsis. His name is Demter, and he also wants to apologize for scaring her. Naturally, looking into such beautiful eyes, it is impossible to continue to be angry, although she was not angry at him at all. The fact that it was not a hereditary principle made her feel very lighthearted, although at the same time, she really wanted it to be him. After some time, the guy realized that she was the same famous representative of the trade guild, Astria, and admitted that he had always wondered why, while she was famous in the business world, she was known as an enigmatic figure in high society, to which she replied that he was simply flattering her. Since he also had a glass of wine, although she didn't really want to drink, she thought she should at least take one sip out of politeness. And he also looks at her with such a look that it is already starting to confuse her. Ludia still does not understand what his intention is. She had just started talking to him on neutral topics and stopped watching around her. Just at that moment, the prince approached her. Even the Demtor was scared of him. He stood up from the bench very abruptly, as if he had done something wrong or was afraid of him. Although it is not clear why, but she also began to get nervous. She simply succumbed to this panic, but everything could have happened differently. For some reason, Demtor thought that she was also scared. He began to cover her with himself, and she tries to show herself to the prince so that all this does not look too disrespectful towards him. It is impossible not to recognize him, even in a mask. His red eyes give away his identity from the first seconds, so the girl did not even doubt that it was definitely him. You want to look at them as long as possible? They are such a noble red color that she herself would like the same, and with black hair it looks especially luxurious. In the original story, Elian attended every party where the crown prince was rumored to be, causing chaos, and eliminated any young lady who showed even the slightest interest in him. So Ludia feels she has an obligation to warn him about this. Meanwhile, the guy looks at her as if he really likes her too, and he is afraid of looking somehow wrong in front of her. He remembers the last conversation with the master. He does not believe that such a girl can match the description he heard. In order not to waste time, she approached him and said that she had a very important conversation with him. She wants to ask him for a favor, although inside she has huge doubts that he will be interested. He started to think about what she might want from him, but he still didn't understand or come up with anything. So he said that he was listening to her carefully. Ludia came closer to him so that no one could hear it, but for some reason she only managed to say part of the phrase, that tonight he should be prepared for the fact that one crazy woman, and at that she stopped, as if she didn't have enough strength for the rest of the words. The guy didn't understand what it meant. He started to catch her, and at that moment he didn't realize that she really felt bad. He became very anxious because he needed to be prepared for something, but he never found out the specifics. For her, literally one moment passed. Ludia opens her eyes and realizes that it is no longer night outside, and apparently the next day has come. She doesn't understand what happened. At first, she didn't even remember what happened to her and how she ended up here, and most importantly, who helped her with this. At first, she felt fine, but then very slowly a sharp pain began to appear, which became unbearable. The girl even got up to at least somehow control her well-being, but it didn't help. She has never had this before, and she also can't remember what she ate or drank last night to figure out what she might have been poisoned with. Ludia is already clutching her stomach, that she is not wearing the clothes she was wearing, but she herself does not remember changing clothes, which means that someone helped her. She felt very awkward because she didn't remember so many things, and there was no one around who could remind her of anything. And then the most interesting thing happens. The girl realizes that this is not even her room. Now she really has no time for jokes. She is already beginning to think that someone could have kidnapped her, and she still has no idea who it could be because she doesn't remember anything, not even a single thing. She was already starting to panic, listening to footsteps in the hallway, and just at that moment, someone knocked on her door. She allowed me to come in. Some guy greeted her. He was very friendly and so far not alarming at all. He was glad that she had finally woken up, so he went to her literally every 10 minutes to check on the situation. Ludia doesn't understand who he is. She has never seen this man before. At least that's what she thinks. And then she realizes that he is not as unfamiliar as he seemed at first glance. Some memories began to appear in her memory. After all, it was he who got engaged to Lady Shubernia yesterday, and he himself is Lord Ashir, whom it would be strange not to recognize. In the memories of the real Ludia, Lord Ashir is a high-ranking official of the Empire and the second in command of the Imperial Army, as well as the eldest son of the House of Ashir. He was remembered as one of the few friends of the Crown Prince. In other words, he was of too high status to see her alone, not to mention him becoming her acquaintance. And meanwhile, the guy says that she looks like she doesn't remember him. He began to tell that yesterday she took some substance, which actually caused partial memory loss. Only the girl doesn't remember taking anything unusual. She only ate food from the buffet and drank a couple of drinks. Nothing more. To which he told her that some drinks, as it turned out, contained ingredients that brought people to such a state. And then she remembers how she talked to Mr. Demir and wanted to drink some wine out of politeness, and that's probably what did this to her. She knew that she shouldn't have done that, and there's another very important point. That glass was brought by that guy. It's possible that he was nervous then, precisely because the prince could find out everything and punish him for it. A very interesting situation, and she really wants to know more information. But at the same time, she doesn't want to burden the Lord with her problems. After that, the guy thought that she should know something else, at least that she is in their residence. His Highness the Crown Prince asked them to take care of her. That's why she is here. And so that she wouldn't worry, he reminded her that they had already contacted their family once. So it could be said that they were not strangers. Lord Asher also said that for her information, regarding the crime that occurred yesterday, His Highness the Crown Prince will deal with this personally and has promised to bring the matter to an end and punish everyone involved. He also plans to use this incident to root out the supplier, which is a very serious approach in his style. But who would have thought that that guy, when he approached her just like that, it is possible that he could have introduced himself with a different name to make it harder to find him. Stonking. Ashir also explained why he personally wants to help the prince in this situation. It's very simple. It was at his engagement that this incident happened, and he should have been more careful and controlled every glass that was intended for the respected guests. He is sad that now everyone will remember this situation, and next time the guests will be wary of trying anything if they find out that he organized the event. He also decided to sincerely ask for forgiveness, because that's the least he can do for now. And of course, a little later, he will definitely correct his guilt. Otherwise, he will blame himself for this for the rest of his life, because everything could have ended much worse, and it was lucky that the lady woke up and feels fine. Ludia asked him to raise his head and look into her eyes, and then said that even for him, it would be difficult to watch every corner, and the one who should apologize is the person who tried to poison her. The girl is very glad that this happened to her and not to another person who would have suffered much more severely from the consequences. She believes that everything ended not so badly, unlike how it could have been, so she sincerely said that she does not hold a drop of resentment or anger towards him. The guy started saying that she was not at all like the rumors said. He said that in high society she was known by a nickname, shy, and she didn't like this description right away. She always declines invitations to parties, and even when she attends a social event, she just stands quietly next to Lady Elian, so he assumes that this is how she earned such a nickname. The girl agrees that it is logical, although this information makes her a little uncomfortable. After that, he decided to take his leave, because firstly, she needed to rest, and secondly, he had his own personal affairs that could not be postponed. Finally, he only wants to ask her one thing. It will be a very unexpected question, and she won't even immediately understand what it's about. He reminded her that she hadn't finished saying something to the prince yesterday, and said that it was very important for him to know what exactly she hadn't managed to say, because the guy was still very confused about it and couldn't understand what it meant. The girl couldn't even imagine that he would take her words so seriously, even those in which almost nothing was clear. Unfortunately, the thing is that she only remembers up to the moment when His Highness the Crown Prince helped her, whether it is true or not. But that is how she answered him. The Lord said that it was a pity that she didn't remember anything, and just in case, if something came back to her memory, he asked her to be sure to let him know. And he also said that she was much more interesting than his master had described her, after which he became so embarrassed that she herself felt awkward. The guy seemed to have forgotten that he was in a hurry, for example. Now he suggests that they start calling each other by name. If it's clear, the girl doesn't mind. It seems to him that it would be nice if she started calling him simply Caves, and he simply called her Ludia. Meanwhile, as soon as he left, she returned to the pillow because she really doesn't feel very well. Her body seems to be inclined to sleep, as he advised. She still doesn't understand how such things can continue to happen when only a few days have passed since her reincarnation. In her past life, she didn't have such eventful days, and here each next one is an even greater saturation of the previous one. In any case, for now it is very important for her to rest and try not to think about anything bad, so she can quickly come to her senses. And in the meantime, a few days passed and now they were invited to another party. Even though they came here, now they are a little busy. Elian started a very serious conversation. She noticed that lately her friend was too cold with her and she was almost never around, unlike how it usually was. The girl began to remember that her friend used to agree with her and willingly help her, but now she no longer does this, as if she began to think only about herself. Ludia wasn't going to tell her the truth anyway. She just pretended to feel a little bad. And then it started. Elian started remembering that she never showed it before and said that actually when she behaved like that, she spoiled her mood too. This means that she doesn't care that her friend has problems. She just doesn't want her to suffer because of her bad mood. Everything looks like since then, when this friendship is no longer so beneficial, Elian does not like it, and she says it directly. She was completely satisfied when they did or were where she needed, and now everything has begun to change. In fact, there is a reason why Elian is so selfish. Ludia's family, House Mertens, were provincial nobles who only 3 years ago were barely making ends meet, living off the income from their small fiefdom. That was until Ludia seriously delved into the business world and did not raise the status of the family trade guild Astria. On the other hand, the Elian family, the House of Feliatin, were also provincial nobles, but they were powerful and had great prestige and influence. As a result, other provincial nobles considered their relationship with the House of Feliatin to be very important, and the House of Mertens was no exception. Meanwhile, her friend, as usual, urges her to greet the people inside, and Ludia did not remain silent and reminded that Elian brought her here because she said that it would be difficult for her to meet the children of such high-ranking families alone. Besides, if they stand outside, people will think it's weird, and she doesn't want that. Surprisingly, Elian replied that her friend was right. As she said, the people inside are more important now, and didn't even argue. On the contrary, she smiled and suggested going inside. But there is a high probability that something else is hidden behind that smile, and her friend already senses it. She started to act very strangely, as if this conversation had not just happened, and they almost had a fight. Ludia is a little upset that there was a misunderstanding between them, but the way her friend wants it, it won't happen anyway. Meanwhile, they went inside and apologized for being late, because usually at such events it is customary to arrive early. It is considered appropriate to arrive even half an hour before. The first thing Elian did was greet the young lords and say that it was an honor for her to see them again. And one of them replied that after their conversation at the last event, he was looking forward to talking to her again. After some time, the girl introduced her friend. She said that Ludia is the head of the trade guild Astria and that she is from the House of Mertens. The guy says that he didn't even think to meet such a respected person here, and he showed with his whole appearance how glad he was to meet him. He knows that the reputation of the Astria Trade Guild is incredible in their day. He even heard that she recently signed a contract to supply ore to the Royal Knights of the Guard and went to ask if it was true or not, and she replied with a smile that it was, and that she was very lucky. The guy was surprised that she thought she was lucky because he heard that the Knight Commander was not the kind of person who could be conquered so easily, and since the contract was signed, it meant that she was very capable, and this was clearly not luck. Meanwhile, her friend stood aside and felt superfluous, although she thought that, as usual, it would be the opposite. In the end, she came up to him, joined the conversation, and told him that it was all because they clearly divided their roles, and also that she worked for everyone, preparing for this contract. Although, in fact, she did not make any effort. Everything was done personally by Ludia, and only. She also said that her friend loves her job so much that sometimes, even when they come to such social events, she only talks about it. This sounded like a hint that it was time to change the subject. At this point, Ludia understands perfectly well that by pretending that her friend is worried about her, she is in fact only manipulating and attracting everyone's attention in a way that benefits her. But the Elian method can be poison, especially for those who have a favorable impression of it, and there are many of them here. If Elian was really smart, she wouldn't have chosen this method. But in the meantime, since her friend really wanted to talk to these two guys, she gave her the opportunity and said that she would probably go for a little walk. It is clear that these two were a little upset, and the girl saw this and again began to envy her friend because this had never happened before, and she was always in first place. Ludia asked to ignore her and continue the conversation as if she was not there. She admits that she acted a little impulsively, but it will definitely be better this way. From now on, they won't be able to look down on Ludia. Ludia's memories and emotions overwhelm her as time passes. The original Ludia wanted to leave Elian, but the burden of her family on her shoulders was not light. She was constantly busy with paperwork. She sat until night and sorted out documents, and each time there seemed to be more and more of them. The girl was just walking straight, not noticing anyone, when suddenly a familiar person appears in front of her, whom she is very happy to see. It was the young Lord Asylon, who greeted her with a smile and showed with his whole appearance that it was absolutely mutual. And he also admitted that he was looking for her among this huge number of people, and now he finally succeeded. It turns out that his fiancée really wanted to meet her, so he wants to introduce them, and if necessary, he will give them time to talk alone. This beautiful, sweet girl's name is Rihanna. She is the second daughter of the House of Shuburnia Bana. Although this name does not mean anything to her yet, Ludia tensed up, began to remember this name, but nothing. But he still does not come, as suddenly, a couple of minutes later, began to understand something. Because if she is from the House of Shuburnia, it is one of the only 3 ducal houses associated with the imperial family. It's very strange why such a person suddenly wanted to see her. Is it because of what happened this morning? Just in case. The girl started apologizing if it was rude of her, to which she replied that Caves had already told her, so she knew everything about that situation. And she also said that if anything, she was so sorry that she had to go through all this because of them, so she sincerely wants to ask for forgiveness. After this, the girl also admitted that, in fact, there was another reason why she really wanted to see her. Only 3 years ago, few people knew about the Astria Trading Guild. But since the girl personally took over the management of the business, she has achieved great success and raised its reputation in such a short time. Moreover, if it was thanks to her that during the Great Famine last year they were able to prevent damage, foresight to look into the future, accurate judgment of value, and also honesty. Most people think of this as Lady Elian's achievement, but this is just what people who don't know the inner situation say. In fact, it is very nice to hear that some people not only listen to what others say, but also take a sensible look at something. Only it is not clear yet what the girl wanted to say by this. And in the meantime, she noticed that the very band she had spoken of had just arrived. A couple of minutes ago, I was very interested in who this band is, and it seemed like she knew. Moreover, she even talked to this person. This is His Highness the Crown Prince, but why they call him that? She still doesn't understand, because he has a title, status, name, but more on that later. A little unexpectedly and even strangely, but Rihanna asked her to come up to the prince after a while and talk to him, and also said that he was very shy and therefore could not approach people first, and also suggested that it would be good to use gratitude as a pretext and literally in a second. These two smiled, waved their hands as if everything that had just happened was some kind of plan, and everything did not happen by chance. She also waved at them with a smile, but she was thinking about what was happening. She wasn't ready for this. Her head is literally bursting from all the things she has planned for today. And then there's Rihanna's desire. It's too much. Meanwhile, as usual, as soon as the prince appears somewhere, all the free ladies immediately surround him to attract his attention. Suddenly, he will remember someone and fall in love. The guy tries to pay attention to everyone out of politeness, but the girls are so persistent that they still don't let him go. It's all so exhausting, but she needs to stand here too in case her friend does something to fix the situation. The prince thinks that he shouldn't have worn the same mask as last time, although even if he had hidden himself completely, it still wouldn't have helped him. At some point, he looks up and notices a little further away Ludia, who also noticed that he looked at her. She was very pleased that he recognized her even in a mask. But on the other hand, maybe it was too early for her to rejoice. Who knows how everything will turn out? Suddenly, he somehow miraculously noticed that she began to close her eyes and seemed to fall off her feet. The prince made his way through this huge crowd to catch her in time. Otherwise, if something happened to her, he would not forgive himself. He immediately remembered that this was exactly the same situation as last time, which meant that it wasn't at all that they were trying to poison her. It was something else. He is already interested in solving the mystery of why she loses consciousness when she sees him, although he has not noticed her shifting when she looks at him, which means he has no reason to think that she simply fell in love with him and begins to feel bad when she sees him. Lucky that this time he caught her and she came to her senses almost immediately. The girl thanked him for this and, of course, for the incident that happened last time. She tells him that she feels a little awkward, but what can she do? She herself doesn't know what's happening to her lately. Suddenly, she notices that he is looking at her too tenderly, as if he treats her more than just an acquaintance, as if there is something more between them than just politeness. This look gives her goosebumps in that very second, and she also feels a little awkward that he can see it. In the end, in order not to provoke rumors, they had to quickly disperse as if they didn't care about each other, even though he has already left. Ludia tries to catch the last notes of his perfume, because it is something beautiful that she wants to feel always and everywhere. Each time she understands more and more why her friend fell in love with him and why it manifests itself so clearly. As she thought there were some adventures, someone touched her shoulder. The girl turned around, and as it turned out, Elian came up to her. She was so angry that she even squeezed her friend's hands, as if she had just betrayed her. She stopped caring what others thought. She yells at her friend and asks if it seemed to her by chance that Ludia had just been in the arms of the crown prince. She even asked how pleasant it was, and then suddenly admitted that she had already become jealous and was demanding an explanation. Otherwise, this friendship would come to an end. After this, the girl began to reassure herself that there was nothing wrong with it. And from her sinister smile, you can see how jealous she is. Because if she were in her place, she would be the happiest girl in this world. But as it is, she just looked at it from the side. She wouldn't have been so offended if it hadn't been her friend. But in the meantime, Ludia couldn't hold back and asked why she should ignore the man if he came to help her himself. In Nanawashin, each time the girl tries to make her understand that she is not trying to adapt to her, and that if someone wants to talk to her, she will not refuse it just so as not to offend her friend. Because this way she will only make things worse for herself. And in the end, everyone will think that she is cold. And besides Elian, she simply will not have other friends or acquaintances. Her friend had never heard anything like that from her. She doesn't even know what to say to it. It was very unpleasant, but that's how it is. And then the most interesting thing began. It is not yet clear why, but Ludia began to directly say that yesterday she spent the night with the crown prince, so he could not help but approach her today. Elian just can't believe her ears now. For her, it sounded like a real betrayal. A friend asked to repeat the same words again because she thinks she misunderstood something. She really wants to hope so. Then she changed her mind and said that it was all a lie. She would never believe it and started to leave. Finally, she asked that if everything she had just heard was true, then why was the prince looking at her now? Ludia laughed slightly and replied that she probably just imagined it. Perhaps she had some problems with her vision. The girl very abruptly stopped being nice to her friend. She tells her straight out that she should stop and come to her senses because this world doesn't only revolve around her and that there are other beautiful girls in this world who the prince might also like. And she also specifically asked how the prince could fall in love with Elian, if even at their first meeting he didn't pay attention to her, and so much time had passed, she had talked to him more than once, but her friend, not a single one. To make it through one. Then she said that it would be great if it ended up being just a misunderstanding, but she knows her. Ludia wants to warn him in advance because she thinks that she will pursue him even more aggressively, precisely because it is him. And in short, she advises not to reach out to him and just back off while she asks her about it nicely. It is obvious that after such words and such a conversation, they will hardly ever be able to be friends like before. Suddenly, a friend starts demanding that the girl go up to the guy and say the same thing that she just told her. But the girl didn't expect this, because at the very least, she lied about spending the night with him. Elian refuses to believe until the very end that there was something between them. So until her friend does this, she will remain with her opinion. This is a real test. Here, you can only hope for luck. It is very interesting how the girl will get out of it now. From that moment on, a lot of thoughts came into her head. To be honest, she won't pretend that she didn't succumb to provocation, because it's true. The girl has no idea how she will manage it. She doesn't want to embarrass herself in front of the prince, but it seems she will have to. Otherwise, there will only be more problems, and since she has already quarreled with her friend, there is no way back. She had already started to play out different scenarios in her head. What if she went and the crown prince simply ignored her? Although if she knew how he really felt about her and what he thought about her, she wouldn't be afraid. But even amidst this anxiety, she had a vague confidence that he would not ignore her. Apparently, the girl simply somehow feels how he treats her. Seeing him look at her even in the chaos gives a very pleasant feeling. as if she is special and as if he is telling her so directly. Meanwhile, she had already taken courage, came very close to him and made it clear that she wanted to talk about something. This is the very moment she feared the most. Now everything depends on his reaction. Everything will be either very good or very bad. The girl says that in fact, she wanted to thank him for helping her that day, but she looks down because she is very embarrassed. She hopes she hasn't become a burden to him so late at night, to which he replies that something must have been very noticeable. Only she doesn't quite understand what he means. After that, he said he was told he was watching too much, so he tried his best to restrain himself. The lady only now realized that he simply wanted to apologize if she suddenly approached him because he looked at her too much and too often. She began to explain that this was not what she wanted to tell him at all, when suddenly he apologized and hinted that he needed to leave right now. And when she asked him what was the matter and whether it was because of her, he explained that because of being here, the party is constantly interrupted. Everyone tries to eavesdrop on every conversation he has with anyone. At that moment, the guy who actually threw the party asked to listen to him. He wants to say that the prince is absolutely right. It is his engagement party after all, so he should be the center of attention, no matter how selfish it sounds. After that, he kindly asked to pay a little more attention to him and his beloved. Otherwise, they would be very upset that the event did not go the way they wanted. Suddenly, the same girl who asked him to talk to her came up to her. She started to pull him by the hand, and so hard that it was impossible to tear herself away from her. And she also started talking about some tomorrow's newspapers that will sell like hot cakes. And she led her into some huge room, although Ludia had no idea what would happen here and why they chose her. Having come here, she suddenly returns to reality, but decided to think about it later, because now she needs to focus as much as possible on what is happening right here and now. Meanwhile, the girl asks if there is any tea that she likes the most, as if she wants to treat her. She replied that there was nothing like that because she was not picky about food, and the lady was delighted and said that it was very good. Just a moment ago, it seemed like this stranger was probing her, but now she is overly friendly, even too much. Ludia was already a little embarrassed in the presence of the prince, and now the girl says that she needs to go for the caves, which means that she will leave them here alone. Even the guy was tormented because even he didn't know what his sister had planned. It was very thoughtful on her part, but at the same time, it was possible to arrange this meeting somehow differently. She just once heard that Ludia wanted to talk about something with the prince, so she thought for a long time about how to help her with this. Of course, the lady is very grateful to her for this, but it all happened so unexpectedly that she could lose consciousness again from excitement, even right now. How awkward it was for both of them. It's simply impossible to describe in words. They are literally trying to bring them together, and the worst thing is that everyone understands it. No one can just leave now. It would be disrespectful to the interlocutor, especially since they both treat each other well and know what etiquette or politeness is. Even though they are now showing with their whole appearance which that they would not like this to happen, inside they are clearly at least a little bit glad that at least someone helped them to be alone, because they themselves would not have done it. The guy started by saying that he was initially curious about what kind of person she was. He wanted to talk to her, and that since they were given such a chance, he suggested that they spend this time here with maximum benefit and pleasure. He gave her the opportunity to ask him the question first. Ludia said that she knew that he had studied with the young lord, and then asked how the master he had mentioned could know about her. The guy replied that he didn't even think that she might not know this, and then confirmed that the commander of the knights, Marquis Mernhard, was his master. It turns out that he is an even more incredible person than she could have thought. The lady could not even guess that this could connect these people. Then he started asking a question. There is something that has been bothering him all this time, namely her recent words that she never finished. He wonders what she meant then, because if he doesn't find out the answer today, he'll just break his brain and go crazy from pointless guesses. It would seem that she should explain everything to him on the go, but for some reason Ludia thought about it and said that unfortunately, her memory is too foggy right now, perhaps because of the effects of the drug, so she herself doesn't know the answer to this question yet. He already thought that he would find out everything now, but in the end he was disappointed because he would have to think about it for a very long time until she remembered everything and until they met again to discuss it. Ludia apologized for not being able to be helpful in this conversation, but promised to definitely remember what she wanted to tell him then. After that, he suggested calling each other by just first names, because he doesn't really like all these formalities. And then he suggested not only to get rid of formalities, he wants her to address him by his nickname. His Highness the Crown Prince, Vertashelen der van Battenberg, as befits one who has held the position of Crown Prince firmly for the past 10 years. He is considered the most distinguished of the 5 siblings, and he is currently being called the most likely candidate to become the next emperor, and he is the main character of this novel. So it is not yet clear to her whether it is normal for a person like him to suggest to someone like her to call each other by name. While she was thinking for a long time, he thought that she didn't like it or would like him to address her more politely than just by her name. Lydia replied that it was not about that at all. She thought it would not be too rude of her to address him so simply, as if they were friends. The guy thinks that this is absolutely normal, especially since it is his idea, which means he can safely agree and not invent unnecessary problems for himself. He thought she would be pleased to receive such an offer, but now that he confirmed that everything was fine, she felt calmer. It will still take some time to get used to. She will call his name with caution, but sooner or later it will become a habit. Then we'll just have to discuss how best to address him when there are a lot of people around, so that rumors don't start and people don't think that there's something between them. At that moment he smiles strangely, thereby only embarrassing her even more. Her cheeks are already exactly the same color as her eyes, and soon they will become even earlier. The girl wondered what kind of smile this was, why he was behaving like this. On the one hand, she was very pleased that there was something more between them than just an acquaintance. But on the other hand, because of her friend, she felt guilty about something. While everything is going more or less well, she again starts to invent problems out of thin air and thinks that she has disgraced herself again in something. The girl was silent, behaved very calmly, and now she is so angry with herself, as if she allowed herself to insult him. The guy no longer understands why she is so receptive, because they communicate calmly. After this, he is now afraid to move on to more important topics so that she does not feel even worse. Then he couldn't help himself. He talked to her about it. He wants them to continue communicating. But if she is so embarrassed in front of him, nothing will work out for them. In Makatawarudtum, the prince asked her to think that they were old friends and that there could be no awkwardness between them, especially since he was not the kind of person who would judge her for anything, because he understood that everyone around him was nervous and could say something unnecessary because of this. He himself had often been in such situations. He is gradually managing to correct the situation, and if he tries to do it at all, it means that he is not indifferent to her. That's for sure. Right after that, Lydia suggested that he change the subject, and she herself wondered what to talk about, since they had almost nothing in common. The girl looked at the red drink and said that it was very interesting that they had the same eye color, and that when communicating it is very interesting to observe how her eye color looks from the outside, although she had not thought about it before. And she also noticed that, unlike her, he has a very rich red shade, which looks much more noble, to which he replied that this was a characteristic of the Battenberg family, black hair and red eyes, and then asked if she knew that before becoming an imperial family, the Battenbergs were a family that was involved in shady dealings. Black hair was useful for hiding in the dark, and red eyes were said to signify an intuition of doom, so they were called the eyes of the Reaper. After that, he asked her if she now thought that such a color did not look noble, but rather frightening. Ludi still thinks that it looks like some deep ruby, but it doesn't evoke any bad associations, even after such a story. She can describe it as a beautiful, ripe ruby, colored a crimson red that no one else has. The girl is sure that many people envy him because of the color of his eyes, because most people have inexpressive and unremarkable eyes. Moreover, there are people who notice such details immediately, and for them, it is something more than just color. Strangely, for some reason, he started covering his face. Apparently, the guy felt awkward from such compliments. He asked her to wait literally a couple of minutes, and he himself began to go out into the corridor, as if he wanted to calm down there alone, so that she would not see it. Lydia couldn't even imagine that he was so receptive to compliments, because a person like him probably gets told something like that almost every day several times. But he reacted as if he was hearing something like that for the first time. It's good that at least this time she didn't feel guilty because she clearly knows that she only said good things. And there's definitely no need to worry about that. It turns out that the prince came to the room where the girl was waiting for him. He told her what happened and she laughed a little. Because she didn't think that he would react to her compliments like that. Because he hears the same thing from literally everyone he meets and should have gotten used to it a long time ago. She told him that this was too much, that he should have left, that if he was embarrassed, then in front of her and not leave the lady alone with the feeling that she had done something wrong. The girl thinks that now Ban firmly holds the position of the crown prince. But then he was just a junior, and his position was very shaky. Everything changed after he took Marquis Bernhard as his mentor. Supporters of the royal family gathered around him. To confront a powerful aristocratic faction, talent, looks, he has it all. He knows his strengths well and knows exactly how his looks affect noblewomen. But when it comes to romantic issues, he is hopeless and needs help, even in the most insignificant moments. The lady thought all this time that she was raising a wolf, but she raised some confused puppy, and in the meantime, she asked if he said at least some words of gratitude to her compliment. The guy remained silent. His cheeks turned red again, and she asked him not to say that he hadn't even done this. The most basic thing he should have done without thinking. The girl asked if she understood correctly that he had just left the lady alone in that room, without any explanation. And then the prince realizes how terrible he acted and what it could lead to if Ludia turns out to be a touchy girl. The girl didn't have time to tell him that it was very clumsy of her. He already rushed to correct the situation before it was too late. At that moment, she thought that, in fact, his reaction was completely understandable, and there were several reasons for it. For a man with his background, he is not used to people. He only pretends that he knows how to communicate with them and tries to look competent. Meanwhile, her husband says that His Highness is really so inattentive that sooner or later he will get into trouble because of it. And she looked at him with a displeased look and said that he should learn to understand hints. Unless, of course, he wants a divorce right before marriage. And she said it in such a voice as if she wasn't joking. Here comes the evening. This day has finally come to an end. You can already relax and be alone with your thoughts. This is the time of day that Ludia loves the most. At this time, no one can distract her, load her with some kind of work, and in the meantime, of course, she plays over the recent situation in her head. When the guy left her alone in the room, at first she thought it was some kind of prank and he couldn't do that to her. But the way he rushed to explain told her everything she needed to know, and the situation more or less returned to normal. In the end, after that, they talked for more than an hour, and by that time, they were even talking informally. She habitually recalls how she behaved with him in order to think about all the mistakes she could have accidentally made, but she didn't remember anything like that. In the end, Ludia came to the conclusion that he is still interested in her, because it simply cannot be otherwise. He shows this with both actions and words. But that doesn't mean she wants to be Cinderella. Her life has become much more complicated because of Elian, but overall she is happy with being in Ludia's body. Noble family, better looks than before. Happy home, huge inheritance. Overall, such a life is not bad at all. Although no, it's not just not bad. It's something like a gift or fate, better than which nothing can be imagined. Besides, Ludia had earned enough money in the last few years to live in luxury for the rest of her life and not have to worry about it anymore. And the Mertens family, a local noble house far from the central political chaos. The next morning, the office of the director of the Trade Guild Astria. The girl enters this room and realizes that there is someone here. She walked further, saw her friend, but she no longer had any desire to communicate with her. It was as if she had become a stranger to her. Elian smiles as if nothing had happened, although she herself has probably already decided that they are no longer friends. The girl asked what she was doing here because she thought that there would be no one here and she would be able to work in peace. Elian reminded that they actually always worked together in this office, and it was unclear to her what was so strange about her presence here, especially since the party's already over. Time to catch up on the work they've already missed more than once. All this is very strange because usually it was literally impossible to drag her into this office. Elian did not even like to appear near this room, not to mention coming earlier and correcting the omissions, and even without reminders and scandals. She very rarely did real work. Basically, she blamed everything on Ludia and had no idea how this work even turned off in some way. The girl asked directly what all this meant and what her friend was planning, because she would never believe that she just came here to work, to do a useful thing. Elian asked with surprised eyes what kind of questions. Supposedly, there was nothing surprising in the fact that she came to work so early. Ludia tells her that in the past, instead of doing the work, she just dumped everything on her, and the girl never saw Elian even touch any documents. And now she speaks with a serious face, as if she can't allow herself to put off her tasks for later. It sounds just funny. The lady is not going to be nice to her here. Like, there is no friendship between them anymore, and she is not going to let such strange moments pass her by. It's clear that she needs something from her, so she came early to talk about something and at the same time pretend as if she was also busy with something. Elian didn't react to this in any way. She continues to behave as if she doesn't understand what claims could be made against her. Suddenly, her mood and behavior changed dramatically. She comes closer to her, grabs her hand as usual, and says that if it comes to that, then she should be the one asking her why she is behaving like that. And people want to ask how it is not beneficial for them, or how else maybe, how they want it, or how they have been behaving all these years. But in the end, she kept silent because she thinks that this situation can be turned to her advantage and not succumb to provocations. She thought very carefully about how best to behave, what best to say, in order to approach the situation wisely and not frivolously, as some. Again, out of the blue, as if this conversation had never happened, the friend said that Ludia need not worry. She would work even harder than before. Meanwhile, the girl found literally half an hour to rest, went outside and began to be surprised at how her friend was changing literally every day. It would seem that this should be very good, but knowing her, it is a little alarming because she would never do something like that, just like that. It is obvious that she is trying to achieve something and is taking small steps towards her goal, but it is still difficult to understand what she needs. And she also has a feeling that at some unexpected moment, her friend is simply putting a knife in her back to conveniently get rid of the one who is standing in her way, and she is just capable of that. Meanwhile, she urgently needed a carriage. The girl remembered that this was a fantasy world and began to check whether it was enough to just think about the carriage appearing here for it to actually appear. It so happened that there really was a carriage here. But as soon as she started to enter, she was stopped because this transport was already reserved. It was worth her only hinting that she could pay twice as much. The driver promised to take her in comfort wherever she wanted. After she made a deal with this man, she said that maybe she could just find a way out of here. But it's not clear yet what she was talking about and what it could mean. Meanwhile, they had already arrived where they needed to go. The driver told her about it. I wonder where she needed to go in the middle of the day. This place is considered the most famous tourist attraction in the capital, but not everyone is allowed to enter here. People call it by different names: the Tower of the Sage, the Tower of Wisdom, and it was also founded by the most revered magician on the continent. The girl had already come to the right place, said that she had come to get a consultation, and they asked her name and clarified what kind of consultation she was interested in. She said her name was Ludia Mertens. The man immediately recognized her, but still asked if he understood correctly that she was related to the trading group Astria. She replied that everything was correct. She was a Ludia, a representative of the group, and the consultation that interested her. It's about dimensional travel, and she also has a feeling that it's probably weird to hear her say that. She thought this place looks like a mansion from the outside, but it really is a mansion inside. Meanwhile, the assistant along the way says that there is one person here who specializes in traveling through dimensions, so she is very lucky. His name is Teferi Ocular. He is over 200 years old and he is the master of the tower, although the girl does not understand how this is possible. While they are in the elevator, which runs on magical energy, the guy says that there is another person in the session now, so she will have to wait for a while. And he also thought it was important to warn her about the master. He has a rather nasty character, so she should be prepared for this, and it is better not to think that everything will go smoothly and easily. Since Ludia is used to such people, she is sure that everything will be fine, so she told him. The first couple of seconds, so that she wouldn't get scared, he pressed the button very slowly, and now he asked her to hold on tight because they were about to quickly rise up. She said that everything was fine, although she couldn't even imagine that when he said that it was better to hold on, he really was better to hold on. It was so scary and unusual that she even swore to herself that she was here for the first and last time in her life. She would definitely never return here again. The girl got out of the elevator, and it felt like she was flying in zero gravity from space to Earth for several hours. The assistant just wished her good luck and started going back down the same elevator because he wasn't supposed to go any further. It seems to her that they don't usually travel like this. This man seemed to laugh at her, arranged such a crazy attraction for her so that she would remember this place for a long time and so that she would cheer up a little before meeting the master. Meanwhile, it is unclear how this could have happened. But here the prince recognized her. The guy turned to her, although she did not even notice him at first. He asked what brought her here, and she doesn't even know what to answer him because she wasn't prepared for such a turn of events. This is not at all the place where she expected to meet this man, but she still did not hide anything from him. She admitted that she came for a consultation, to which he asked who she wanted to meet. She said she forgot his name, but his title was something like Master or something, and then asked if he knew this person. Instead of giving an answer, he gave her advice, or rather warned her, that the master pathologically hated everything boring, so it would be better to get down to business as soon as she was in his office. She doesn't understand why he smiles when they talk about this, because this is all a very serious matter, and she doesn't joke with him. After that, she suggested not to waste time, started to open the door, and he stopped her at the very moment. He put his hand on her hand and said that he had a question for her that he wanted an answer to right now. He asked if she was busy after the consultation or not, and immediately after that, both of their cheeks turned red. It's clear what all this means, because if he wanted to discuss some important matter with her, he would have said so right away. It's hard to believe, but she actually asked him why he was going to ask her out on a date. And after that, he asked how she guessed, which means he is not hiding his intentions and is more or less ready to discuss it. The prince also admitted that he still felt bad about the situation when he didn't walk her home, so he thought he'd treat her to something tasty. Her thoughts at that moment, no, actually, everything is perfect. I was so busy that I completely forgot, but today I have to warn you about Elian Schnerli of Feliot. In the end, they agreed that he would wait for her, and as soon as she left this office, they could immediately go on a date. Ludia knocked as expected, came in and asked if it would be convenient for the master to allocate some time to her for some business. She said she came for a consultation, but instead of a person sitting at his desk as she imagined, she saw some kind of ghost looking for something on the top shelves. Or maybe it's not his ghost at all, just a man with magical powers who lifted himself into the air. In any case, it looks unusual. That girl immediately went downstairs, and the very first second she looked at her guest, she began to be indignant. How could she calmly watch someone need help? She started talking about where this world is heading, and for some reason she called herself an old man who no one ever helps. Ludia noticed her cheeks, which looked like they want to be pinched, that she was actually here on business. Without noticing it, she allowed herself to call her a child, and the girl began to be indignant and explained that she was actually the master of this tower and that it had just been very offensive. Then she introduced herself. Her name is Teferi. She is one of the last survivors of the Achiller family, and she is also ready to listen to what problems brought this guest to her. Ludia didn't even have time to answer. Teferi started saying that she felt alien energy flowing through the girl's body, and she also has a feeling as if the girl's soul is not from this world at all, and in this, she is absolutely right, and that's how it is. She also said that each soul carries a unique wavelength, and it has a very distinct color. Ludia says that it is hard for her to believe, but she heard that the master is more than 200 years old, and now she sees a man in the body of a 10-year-old child in front of her. The master replied that she really enjoyed seeing the bewilderment in the eyes of everyone who met her, since it was unlikely that anyone else had ever encountered a 200-year-old man living inside the body of an 8-year-old child. Ludia is very reluctant to hear something like he took the body of this child. She is really hoping for a more harmless story. It turns out that he carried out what is called a reunion of souls. This is the unique ability of the Achilles family. To explain it properly would involve myths and legends from thousands of years ago, so he suggests skipping the long story. And after that, he asked if he understood correctly that the reason the girl came here was to ask about the connection between souls and dimensions. Ludia is no longer surprised that she knows this from somewhere, so she immediately asked if there was a way she could return to the world she came from, even though she had just recently said and thought before going to bed that she liked it better here. The master, without further ado, replied that it was impossible, although the girl had hoped for some other answer. Ludia has been catching herself thinking for several days now that she misses her real family very much, and that it would be very sad not to see them at least one more time, even if it were the last. Teferi says that there is no one on this continent who is more knowledgeable in this field than her, but other fields of science may yield different results. Specifically, theology, the study of gods, is the study of invisible, absolute entities. It is a completely different field from magic, which deals with measurable, observable forces. In the field of sciences that they study and control, it can find a different answer. After that, they started talking about some western forest. Ludia asked how this place could help her, to which the girl replied that her father lived there, no matter how strange it might sound, that the master himself was 200 years old, and he could still have a living father. Although, given their ability, this is not even surprising. Meanwhile, their conversation ended. The girl went out into the corridor and said that now she was free. Although she still didn't understand what she needed to do, the information she received wasn't exactly what she wanted, but that's how it is. When the guy said that more than a few hours had passed since she entered the office, she didn't believe him. And when she found out that time really didn't fly in that place, she apologized because it wasn't on purpose, and she wouldn't have made him wait if she'd known about it. He replied that he was absolutely not against waiting for her as long as it took, because the main thing was to wait for the date. They took a short walk, but the cold weather spoiled their mood, so they had to go their separate ways. The girl is already having lunch and thinking about how sad it is that she can't return to her original world. Although she initially had a premonition that this would happen, hearing it out loud was somehow unexpected. See Bumpman Quintana. Ludia began to remember their conversation with the master, namely, the moment when she asked if the girl remembered anything before getting here, if anything unusual had happened before that, to which she answered that she simply fell asleep while reading a book and did not remember anything else in particular. The master promised to ask her father about the possible return. Suddenly he knows something. After all, he lived more than 2,000 years, and he is also like a living chronicle of the Achilles family. For this, she asked for a signed guarantee that says that the Mertens Group will cover any cost when they name it. The girl agreed, but at the end she asked him to pinch her cheek, because if she didn't do it, she would blame herself for a long time. Although she can't even imagine how much the master will ask for, the fact that he agreed so easily means that he will demand a lot in return. It's a little alarming, but for the opportunity to return to the past, she is ready to do anything. And in the meantime, the prince unexpectedly returned to her. But this time, for some reason, he disguised himself and asked if she would mind if he joined her in this form. She had never seen him with white hair. The guy immediately noticed that something was wrong and asked if his mask was causing her discomfort. He even decided to cut them so as not to embarrass her so much. Did not wait for her to answer anything, began to cut her hair. She began to explain that he had misunderstood her and that in fact long hair suited him very well, and then admitted that only now she realized that he had done it in order not to attract unnecessary attention to himself and to have lunch in peace. Especially since if someone sees them together, there will be unnecessary questions, and they don't need that, so he acted very smartly. In the end, all the girls around him started to admire his appearance anyway, but at least they don't know who he really is. The main thing is that they don't start coming up to get acquainted, because they will immediately, in that very second, recognize him by his voice. They still feel a little awkward, but it's better than if he was in his usual form without a mask. Sometime later, she tells him that this hair color suits him very well, and she would like to see him like this more often. He doesn't even know how to react to this. This phrase seems to have several meanings, and he wants to hope that this doesn't mean that she likes him like this much more than in his natural form. Meanwhile, the waitress came up to them and started showing them the first toast she had just made. It was strange that she brought it with such words, because they didn't need to know about it at all. And she smiles in a strange way. And only one of them, although the guy is used to it, it seems to him that the lady opposite might find it unpleasant. It's very good that he thinks about her. The guy is already looking for a way to refuse this dish to make it clear that he is not interested in it, and she can stop flirting with him. Lydia understands everything perfectly, but she still feels a little unpleasant that everyone around, although they see that he is not alone, still comes up to him and tries to attract his attention. She began to think that if they were still together with him, then over time she would get very tired of it, and she would no longer react so easily to each of his fans. Anyway, this toast really does look very appetizing, and it's also convenient that the waitress divided it into 2 parts so that both she and he could try it. The guy says that he didn't have such a dish in his order, to which the girl replied that it was a gift from the establishment for regular customers. Such a promotion is valid only today. In the end, he still refused this toast, although he really wanted to try this dish. He did it so that in the future they would not smile at him like that and would not think that someone could attract his attention with such actions. You can see how upset the waitress was, although I can't imagine that she was smiling and talking nicely to him. Just because that's what she was supposed to do, and she was at work, her job is to talk to people and leave a good impression of the establishment. Even Lydia was a little upset because she wanted to know what this toast tasted like, but the decision was his, and she accepts it. As soon as the girl left, the prince asks how well he did, as if he wants to hear something like, "You're great, I'm happy, because if you accepted such a gift from her, I would be offended." But in fact, it would have been better if he had also spoken politely to the waitress. After all, she didn't tell him anything unnecessary. She was simply offering him a gift. And she also really doesn't like his smug look. He gets on her nerves, but she didn't tell him about it. Meanwhile, they had already gone out for a walk. The establishment had become too loud, and they didn't want to stay there for long. Even on the street, he did not take off this image, so as not to worry that someone might interfere with them. She started sharing grape juice with him, and he responded to her phrases in a strange way, as if he was trying to continue flirting. It looks really weird, especially after she's already made it clear to him that she wouldn't mind going out with him every time he suggests it. He looks like a guy who's trying to get her attention, although it's obvious that he's already succeeded, since they're already out and about and have spent almost the entire day together. At one point, she asked him what it was like to be such a famous person, to which he replied that at first he didn't like it, but now, after he got used to the huge amount of attention, he had one ability, if you can say so. He learned to distinguish people very quickly. Now it is crystal clear to him who is who, even if a person tries to appear to be someone other than who he is. There are several types of people. Those who are hostile to him, they are divided into 2 subgroups, those who hide it and those who do not hide it. Those who want to use it for their own benefit, just like there are those who hide it and those who don't hide it, and also those who want to constantly set him up, to arrange some kind of situation so that bad rumors will start about him, and there are just the most of those. He already thought that he would never meet anyone who treats him well, or anyone who even cares about him, but a person appeared in his life who is not like everyone else. Of course, she was very pleased to hear this. She felt that these were absolutely sincere words. Right after that, the guy started telling how last year his sister took him with her to the south. The Imperial Palace panicked because they missed the official celebration, but it didn't really matter because there were plenty of others who could replace him. He even told them that they could take his place if they wanted, but unfortunately, he still holds that place for 10 years in a row. He seems to talk about it like it's a small thing, but it must be very difficult, and she understands it. He is not the first kind, not the son of an empress, not even the child of a royal concubine. He is the son of a simple concubine. After that, he admitted that he just wanted to brag because he had no other person besides her with whom he could discuss this. In fact, she doesn't mind listening to him. At least she gets to know him better, and he is pleased that she is pleased too. After that, he asked her what her type was, what kind of guy she might like. But you don't just ask questions like that. But since he had already asked, she started saying that since she already had a lot of money, a guy just needed to be a little persistent and interesting. And as for character, they can adapt as they go, unless it is too rough. That's why she has only one condition, that this person is handsome, and that's all there is to it. Although they say that beauty takes a couple of years, the crown prince looks like someone who can be admired forever. And then he says that he has already thought more than once that, in fact, their types overlap a little. Suddenly, some children run up to them. They were playing their game and accidentally pushed Lydia, so she couldn't hold on and fell right into the water. She was a little unlucky. There was a small fountain nearby, and it was also very painful and unpleasant. It so happened that he fell with her because he was holding her hand. But the guy kept silent, that he didn't like something, that she didn't think that such a trifle could upset him. He started to act like nothing happened, and they were still walking around the area and talking about beautiful people. It just so happened that at the very moment they were pushed, he wanted to say that it seemed like they were perfect for each other. People say that the life of a crown prince must be exhausting and busy, but in reality, it was quite a simple routine. He wakes up at dawn to practice fencing on the training ground, then changes his clothes, has breakfast, and talks to visitors who have applied for an audience. Usually this lasts no more than half an hour. And during the day, he receives reports from Kawes Ashir, your longtime friend and assistant. Because Caves is so competent, even when heaps of reports come in, the crown prince looks at less than 10 of them, thanks to the capable people around him. But today, everything was different. In the morning, when he was supposed to be working in his office, he was meeting with someone. This is the same girl who helps him in his relationship with Lydia. She sees that something is happening to him lately, and she is also unhappy that he has stopped telling her a lot, like before. He sighs loudly in front of her every time, and she is already tired of hearing it and wants more specifics. Everyone is getting scared because he behaves like this every day, and she is also tired of calming everyone down. This time she couldn't stand it anymore and asked him to tell her what was going on and what was worrying him. The guy says that, as she said before, he treated Lydia politely and spoke to her kindly. It helped a lot. Thanks to it, he was in a good mood, and I can't say she was in a very bad mood either. He even said that he directly hinted to her that they were right for each other and almost confessed his love. And she started running away from him. So he concluded that maybe she didn't need it, and she was communicating with him just to communicate with someone, without any intentions. You could even say that the assistant was surprised that the girl just took and left, especially at the moment when the guy was expecting some comments from her. And then he says that he always tried to trust and follow her advice, but this time the result was disastrous, so he won't trust her as much as he used to. And it sounded so offensive to her that she almost left him and told him to never ask her for help again. But she is also interested in understanding this issue. Why the lady left without saying a word, because she probably understood that it was very ugly on her part. And then she asked him to be honest with himself, because if this doesn't happen, there will be nothing. After that, she demanded to know what he did to Lady Lydia, only it sounded like she was about to attack him. To which he replied that after he confessed his love to her, he kissed the lady on the forehead. Nuriyir, Then they went about their business, and the girl began to analyze everything she had heard. Although for now she does not understand what exactly Lydia did not like. There is only one explanation for this. Perhaps she does not like the prince at all, and she did not count on any kind of relationship with him, unlike him. And she also thinks that maybe the kiss on the forehead scared her a lot. After all, she just had her coming-of-age ceremony, so being kissed by a guy she barely knows could have been shocking. And most likely a guy who has previously communicated very little with girls on his own initiative. He has no experience in this, and most likely he just thinks that everything went well, but in fact, not quite so. But it's still very strange. The situation is suspicious after all for a person like Lydia, who says what she thinks. To just leave without words is somehow not typical. Maybe she had some reason for it. At least she did it. It seems like he should have called her names and humiliated her. Meanwhile, she thought that there was no point in inventing something herself. She needed to talk to the girl directly, so she came to her as soon as she realized this. She apologized if she had disturbed her, and the girl was busy with something, but the lady replied that everything was fine. And she herself thinks that Lady Rihanna probably didn't come here just like that. The prince probably told her something, so she's trying to help him. Meanwhile, she says she prefers to be direct rather than beat around the bush, and Lydia said she doesn't like wasting time either. So Liana asked directly what happened between her and His Highness last night. She admitted that she actually knew that the two of them had met yesterday, but explained that the guy was telling her everything just to become a better person and get advice. Rihanna said that the guy sighs nonstop all day, and it is already starting to anger everyone, so she would really like to know the reason and eradicate the problems. She knows it's probably too rude to come and ask about it directly, but she's so worried about her cousin that she just has no choice. She wants to know if he really did something wrong or offended her. And she also warned that if the girl doesn't want to talk about it, it's better for her to say it directly than to lie or make up something that didn't really happen. The girl replied that nothing special had happened yesterday, and she didn't think that the prince had made any mistake, and even if that had happened, she would have told him about it. Then she began to remember how awkward it all was, how she felt, how embarrassed. All these emotions seemed to come flooding back to her again. These were absolutely indescribable feelings that she had never experienced before in her life. The girl confessed to Rihanna that the whole problem was that she was simply ashamed in front of the guy, and she did not know how to behave in such situations. Rihanna was happy when she found out about this, because it turns out that there really is no problem. You just need to work on trust in the feeling of the girl next to the prince. Ludia says she's afraid of seeming too easy, although at the same time, she really wanted to be that way because she really likes him. And she also realized very late that it was rude of her. She was already thinking about coming and apologizing to him. But he is the crown prince, so it is very difficult. He goes everywhere during the day, and meeting him is real luck. Rihanna is trying to fight two feelings, that everything is better than she thought. And even though the problem is not serious, it still needs to be solved so that these two do not simply go their separate ways, having a huge chance and desire to be together. Now that she's heard both sides, it's much easier to understand what can be done. The hardest part is to talk each of them into doing it the right way. She asked the girl if she ever thought about becoming an empress, or maybe, like everyone else, she still dreams about it. An hour ago, Ludia's forehead felt like it was burning. She was so confused that she forgot to warn him about Alian, as she had planned. It was very strange for her to realize that it turned out that the prince wanted to deepen their relationship. And before she could not even dream about it, the girl used to think that her friend, who was running after the crown prince, was a little crazy. But now that she herself is in a strange relationship with him, she realized that she had no right to judge others without being in their place. But on the other hand, to be honest, she feels some relief. At least he will not be connected with the crimes of the aliens and will not die unjustly. That's all she needs. It's not that she likes him, although she's probably just afraid to admit it to herself, but she doesn't expect anything to work out between them. I can't believe that such an amazing man can be with her at all, although this is a matter of self-esteem, because in this world, nothing is impossible. She has no desire to become Cinderella. She just wanted to avoid the flags of doom as soon as possible, come to a quiet village and spend money as she pleases, living her quiet life. Meanwhile, as for the question of whether she dreamed of becoming empress, it's strange to her that Rihanna thinks she can answer that question. So she replied that the question she just asked was very dangerous, and she didn't know why she said it or even started this topic. Then before she could continue, Rihanna asked another question. Does she remember that same one, Lord Demure, who poisoned her at a recent party, pretending that he had come simply to treat a lady who was sitting and bored in the middle of the party? Although it's personal, Rihanna started to tell that the prince hates everything connected with dangerous substances. He has a whole history with it. 3 years ago, the guy dealt with everyone who sold them, used them, and simply kept them at home. At least that's what they thought until it started popping up again recently. The guy is currently investigating the case with all his might. He really hates it, but he goes so far that it's almost excessive. To which the girl asked if this was a hint that it was all because of her. Rihanna says that this is not a hint at all. It is the pure truth. There are too many relatives in the imperial families. The ancient imperial family created countless relatives, and in the process, the dispersion of power deepened. They tried to restore imperial power, albeit late, but by that time their power had already gone beyond control. One of their families is desperately trying not to lose power. That says a lot. The other two ducal families are the same as their subordinate houses. This is why His Majesty the Emperor wants the prince to inherit the throne, since he has no relatives on his mother's side. And to become an emperor, he needs to find a spouse. He doesn't need power or influence. He needs someone who won't lie to him, who will support him and love him unconditionally. Someone like her. The girl couldn't even imagine that the conversation would reach this point. She doesn't believe that she heard such words and didn't even have time to understand what she was thinking about it. Then Rihanna promised that if Ludia promised to help the prince, then she would help her in something, namely to become empress. A few days later, Ludia can no longer live this life peacefully because in the morning she received this. Lady Ludia Mertens, representative of the Astria Trading Group, the royal family cordially invites you to a charity auction, Harkreed von Terwan. She is not very happy that she was invited to this event, but she cannot refuse a charity auction under the auspices of the royal family. She wouldn't even have come if it weren't for the royal seal, and now she has to spend the whole day on it. And it's also possible that something unpleasant will happen at the event. It was impossible to predict, but here she even met a friend who from the outside looks like she has everything wonderful and doesn't have a single problem in her life. Just think, they had a huge fight recently. She looked at her with a hateful look. And now as soon as I noticed her, I literally started jumping up and asking how she was doing. And for some reason, I started making excuses that she was here exclusively for work reasons. In any case, it is better to stay away from her, or at least at a distance where she can control her, because you never know what to expect from this person. Since they met and her friend approached her, Ludia decided to ask her a question. And Elian reacted as if they were friends and everything was fine. She asked her what she thinks is the Empress's position, and her friend doesn't even try to avoid answering. Says that this is the highest position, the one that stands above all others and which every girl dreams of. Equal power with His Majesty the Emperor. No need to bow to anyone, moreover. On the contrary, everyone bows to you. And this is exactly why the lady strives for power all her life. She thirsts for power, and complete power at that. And then she asked why her friend was asking about this. And Ludia turned around, started to go somewhere, and finally said that she was just curious. Elian was upset because it turned out that she was used in some way, and she didn't even know why. After that, they went into this huge building together and started discussing who had sent them the invitation. Elian only knows that he is famous, although Ludia knows nothing about this man. Harkreed von, his last name is Terwan. He is the eldest son and heir of the Marquis Terwan family, and at a young age was chosen by the Crown Prince to be his chief aide. What's even more interesting is that the Harkreed von family is one of the leading houses of the noble faction, which means that the Crown Prince appointed a key figure of the noble faction as his assistant. And also, Harkreed von is completely loyal to the Crown Prince. So there are rumors about who is deceiving whom. Elian thinks it's quite strange that this man sent them an invitation, even though they have no connection with him. Suddenly, two girls scream throughout this huge hall as if they saw some huge bear here. Elian didn't hesitate to say out loud that they have no manners, and Ludia tries to understand what's going on. These two say that now you can die happy. It seems that they react this way because of the auction list. Elian doesn't quite understand how such an object could cause such a reaction. She came to take a closer look. She just looked at me with a displeased look, and then suddenly changed as if it was written there that she had won a huge bag of money. Her eyes sparkled so much that it was simply impossible to describe in words. It was as if she was hypnotized. She started to lie on the floor, just like those girls, and after such a mess, she also wanted to take a look at what they all saw there. She calmly approached this announcement, and as it turned out, in the center, there was a small picture of the body of His Highness the Crown Prince. No one had ever seen him in such a form. Of course, she had the same reaction. The girl's heart began to beat faster. She felt a slight heat throughout her body and almost lost consciousness. It's very hard to resist, and she also thought that whoever did it deserved a reward because he gave people a chance to see something beautiful. It turns out that 2 days ago, the prince was talking about this with Rihanna. She was persuading him to take part in this adventure, and he didn't understand why he should agree to this, because it was his body and no one could just see it. He doesn't see any benefit in taking a shirtless portrait and asks why she insists on it. The girl asked him only one question. Does he really not want to marry Lady Ludia? But he did not expect this from her. The guy asked why such questions. How could this be connected at all? And he blushed. He thinks it's too early to talk about it, to which she replies that actually now is just the time and everything is very urgent. The health of His Majesty, the current emperor, is deteriorating, so the succession to the throne will probably happen very soon. The emperor is obliged to produce an heir, so a spouse may also be needed very quickly. But unlike other princes who married as soon as they came of age, he did not even promise marriage to anyone. A spouse from a family that is too powerful or too weak will definitely not help him. But the Mertens family may be an insignificant noble house from the provinces, but they wield real power through the trading group of Astria. The imperial faction is currently struggling under the heavy burden of military upkeep and expenses. But what if Ludia makes trade deals not only with the knightly order, but with the entire army? Then Ludia will have a great influence on military affairs. One can only imagine the connections it could build in these circles. With military power centered around the Ludia, imperial power could finally be consolidated. He understands all this perfectly well, but doubts whether the lady would even want such a position, which is very unlikely. The girl replied that she probably wouldn't be interested in it yet, but if Rihanna realized that the guy was ready to put in the effort, she would make sure that it wouldn't be a problem. If the girl agrees to support the prince, Rihanna will also help her become empress, and this will definitely interest her. Then Rihanna suggested that he come up with some bold move. Otherwise, they would drag it out for a very long time. She suggests the guy to seduce the girl in any possible way and try to do it until he succeeds. He has no idea how he will manage to do this. He is not used to such things. What are we talking about? If he does not even have to strain himself, almost every woman dreams of being with him. But here he needs to come up with something. Get out of his comfort zone. This is not about him. Rihanna reminded that there is not a single living woman in this world who would not succumb to his influence, except for her, of course. Especially whether it's a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Everyone likes something related to mystery or something like that. The guy doesn't understand what she's hinting at. Asked to speak directly because he doesn't want to solve these riddles and waste time on it. In short, she suggested that he make it so that Ludia would see his body in any way, even if it wasn't a picture, even if, under some circumstances, other people would see it besides her. In the end, their plan is successfully implemented. The girl is already crazy about him and wants to see it live. Then she was surprised at herself that she had even thought about it. And then her friend came up with a strange idea, although in fact, later it no longer seemed so strange to her. Sooner or later, she would have thought of it herself. Elin offers to buy this portrait of him and speaks about it as if he were offering to buy a bun at the market, without a drop of embarrassment. But buying a portrait of a royal person at the highest price means supporting that royal person. Who knows how much more expensive a portrait of a prince without a shirt will be? Since they have to make all decisions together, her friend insists that she agrees. But over time, Ludia simply cannot resist such an offer. If she had the opportunity, she would have bought 2 such beautiful portraits. At that moment, a girl unexpectedly joined them. She said hello and said that she was very glad to see them. This is Berfonia Rotterfeld. At first, Ludia didn't understand who it was, but then she remembered, and her friend, as usual, immediately recognized everyone, and even called her by name. Berfonia Rotterfeld, eldest daughter of the famous Rotterfeld family, a house of fundamental merit. And also, she is the biggest madman in this whole story. The Rotterfeld family, part of the noble faction, tried to expand their power by absorbing the imperial faction. At that time, the only way for them to establish connections with the imperial family was to win over the still unmarried populated prince. Berfonia was chosen to fulfill the great ambitions of the Rotterfeld family. But the problem was that the girl sincerely fell in love with the prince. So she began to seduce him for real and, like everyone else, went crazy over him. She was constantly looking for a reason to approach him and talk, inviting him to go to different events together. And he constantly refused and came up with different excuses because he simply wasn't interested. He refused her more than 100 times, and it was not enough for her to understand that he was not interested in her. Thus the girl plunged into darkness. She began to simultaneously obsessively love and deeply hate the Crown Prince. After the main character appeared in the original story and became close to the Crown Prince, Berfonia even tried to harm him and the main character directly because she didn't know what else to do. You could say she was an improved version of Elian, and despite everything she did, she got off with exile rather than anything worse, thanks to her powerful support. When she approached her to get acquainted, the girl thought that it would be better not to interfere. Now it would be better to answer casually and not to become even closer to her. She really wants to keep her distance. but as it will be, so it will be. Berfania started saying that these days there is no one who does not know the trading group Astria, and she also heard that Ludia is a genius in business. Right after that, thinking that Ludia was already on her hook, the girl began to offer to become friends and abandon formalities because they were the same age. The lady didn't have time to answer. Her friend interrupted her, who, as always, came at the most inopportune moment. Although who knows, maybe she will lure this girl to herself and it will only be better. And they even once communicated and were acquainted. Elian asked her why the lady had not appeared in the society for a long time recently, to which Berfonia replied that she was simply busy. Elian says she almost thought the girl had married the old count she liked. So she openly started a conflict with her. They started arguing about who is prettier, who will get a husband first. In general, everything is as usual, nothing new. As soon as they started arguing, everyone around them started going in different directions. And Ludia also thought that she should slip away before she got dragged into it. At some point, the girl said Ludia's name, and Elian was outraged that she said it without permission, and then asked if the Rotterfeld family really taught their heirs to treat nobles from other houses so rudely. Ludia really didn't like that she was being dragged into this at all. She wanted to leave, and now she's the center of attention. Berfonia commented that a man from the county of Polioten allegedly criticizes the upbringing of the Duke of Rotterfeld. It's just funny. The more they talk, the more angry they become, and the more aggressive they become. It seems they can't be stopped. Ludia thought that perhaps they hate each other because they are too similar. And as we know, two identical people can communicate normally because they will see in the other all their shortcomings and character difficulties that cannot be replaced. Ludia decided to intervene because things wouldn't go this way. She said that her friend was too excited. She needed to calm down. Elian somehow didn't think that the lady had anything to do with it. After this, the girl turned to the other lady. She asked her to control herself too, because this is not exactly the behavior expected from a noble lady. In fact, Ludia would love to go somewhere, but if left alone, they might even fight. At such moments, the only thing you can do is switch their attention to something else. So she asked the Berfonia if she had anything in mind for the charity auction. The girl replied that she would like to buy a portrait of His Highness the Crown Prince. Although this is not surprising. Ludia said directly that the competition is very high, so everyone will have to fight for the portrait. Berfonia says she has to try it because frankly it's not the painting itself that tempts her. And the prize, the winner will get a one-on-one date with His Highness. She believes that if she wants and plans to become an empress, this level of investment is worth it. Elian says that winning the bidding won't be that easy, and this phrase made Berfonia even more angry. So the girl asked why she was so sure of it, and what was the point of complicating everything when nothing had even really started. Elian said with a smile that he was to blame for this auction, and Ludia, as soon as she heard this, began to get even more nervous. Elian also said that this was her personal decision and nothing and no one would influence it, and her opponent asked if this was really a challenge. Elian suggests organizing a competition and then seeing who seems stronger or maybe even smarter. In the end, by some miracle, Ludia was able to get out of there. She thought it was impossible, but she did it. At that moment, some assistant approached her, apologized for disturbing her, and then said that someone was looking for her. The girl asked who exactly, and he said that he meant Lady Rihanna, and changed that he did not immediately pronounce her name. Lady Rihanna just arrived here on the map. The girl even managed to meet her because she can't wait to find out what she wants to talk about. The door opens. The girl thought that they would now go back inside, but Rihanna did not even have time to say anything. She began to drag her by the hand towards her. He probably thinks that no one will eavesdrop on them here and that they can discuss anything they want in this carriage. Maybe she is right, but it could have been done differently or at least warned. Rihanna, in the meantime, promised that the conversation would only take a couple of minutes, although the girl is in no hurry and is ready to devote as much time as required. Rihanna asked if the lady had seen the ads and what she thought about it, because she still wondered if it was too daring. Ludia asked if this isn't too much, since selling such a painting is not an easy task, and she doesn't fully understand what the idea is, and even more so, how the prince agreed to it. Rihanna explained that this is why the painting is hidden, and only the one who buys it will be able to open it and look at the portrait itself. The girl still thinks that this is a bit too much, and that a secret auction will really solve everything. After that, the girl said that the main part will be tomorrow, So for now, she advises to enjoy the party. And since everything was organized by the imperial family, the atmosphere promises to be great. Ludia was already wondering if she really invited her here just for this. There must be something more interesting, specific, maybe some requests or advice. She told her so, that she had a feeling as if this was not the only reason why she invited her here. To which Rihanna replied that everything was very simple. The upcoming event could be dangerous. Ludia immediately after that asked what she meant. Rihanna asks if the lady has seen the prize, which excites people more than the painting itself. But there is a more serious intention behind it all. The prize is just bait. Recently, a large number of poisoned items were found in the palace of the Crown Prince, but the culprits were already dead. She believes that if they hush it up now, something even worse might happen next time. So the prince decides to become the bait himself. The girl asked if she understood correctly that this prize was invented to lure out those who try to harm the prince. Rihanna said that everything is absolutely correct, especially the noble faction, and the guy's other brothers and sisters are under close surveillance. In any case, the girl thinks that this whole idea is somehow too much. Although at the same time, she does not understand how she would act in their place. Rihanna says that to hide their true intentions, they just needed something provocative. So that's what they did, and she thinks it worked. Countless crown princes have given their lives for pride. The prince and she have done far worse things over the past decade to protect that position. Pride and shame last only a moment, but destruction is eternal, no matter how it sounds. After that, the girl asked not to worry too much. After all, she told her this because she thought she would be curious to know it. Ludia wondered after these words, wouldn't it be strange not to worry after she heard such a thing? And then it occurred to her that perhaps they told her this just so that she would worry. As the girl promised, she did not detain the lady for long. They said goodbye and went their separate ways. A friend immediately approached her, asking what she was doing, why she wasn't having fun, and offered her to drink some cocktail. She's been looking for her all over the room this whole time, so she wants to know where she's been all this time. And Ludia is already confused. How can she talk to her so calmly after what happened between them? The lady agreed to this cocktail. She just needs to reduce anxiety, and this is the only way to do it so far. Looking at your friend, you can conclude that the cocktail is not as weak as she said, so you need to be careful with it and not get carried away. She just took the first sip and realized that it was really very tasty, that after the first glass, it would really be hard to stop. You want to drink it without stopping. This is one of Elian's favorite drinks. She orders it almost always, except when she wants to try something new, and that happens rarely. And then the girl caught herself wondering why she was even having such a normal dialogue with this person. Who doesn't deserve it, it was necessary to at least ignore her or make it clear that they have nothing to discuss. Moreover, the friend is not in a completely adequate state, so if it were the other way around, she would hardly treat her the way Ludia does. Although on the other hand, it is impossible to deny the fact that lately it has become much easier to communicate with her. Maybe it's because she started to treat her better than she did before. But anyway, we shouldn't forget what kind of person she really is. It's still advisable to keep a sound mind. Even though her friend doesn't quite control herself, she still noticed that Ludia drank something like that for the first time. She felt like something had happened to her. So the girl asked if everything was okay, and she replied that everything was fine, and she shouldn't worry. It's strange, even though she offered her this cocktail herself. Elian only saw that her friend was already finishing her glass, started to worry about her, and suggested some water instead. She probably thought that the girl would refuse as usual and not heat the room, but she agreed, and now her friend is urgently looking for something else for her. Ludia has no idea how her friend's attitude towards her could have changed so much. She can't come up with a single explanation, and this is already alarming. In any case, you need to stay on guard because it doesn't happen that a person changes abruptly without a reason, especially in such a difficult period for everyone. Meanwhile, the girl had already returned, brought her water and suggested singing this instead of those cocktails, although she herself did not change her choice. Ludia didn't remain silent. She said that she was curious about something, and her friend asked what exactly. The girl wants to know how and under what circumstances Elian met Lady Berfonia and asked to tell about it in all details. Elian responded by asking why she was asking this, to which the girl replied that it seemed like they had known each other for a long time, but she had never seen them together before. A friend admitted that that girl is a rival for her, They always had a common goal, one person, but for two, it is impossible to divide it all. Elian calls her a real witch because the girl always stole the guys she liked since childhood. And of course, in return, she tried to do the same. And the most unpleasant thing for her is that it only concerned guys, people, things, wealth, whatever. If she wants it, that witch takes it all away, even if she herself doesn't need it. It seems to her that this time her new goal is Ludia, although the girl does not quite understand why she needs it. They didn't have time to finish speaking when suddenly that lady found them again and of course pretends as if Elian isn't here in order to specifically anger her. The girl couldn't hold back. This time she was determined, so she asked directly what the witch wanted from her friend. She explained that she just wanted to be friends with her and didn't understand why another person could decide that for someone else. And she also advised Elian to let the lady go, because it seems that she is now very awkward and uncomfortable. Elian said very loudly that Ludia was her friend, and under no circumstances would she want to be friends with anyone other than her. In the end, they started asking Ludia to say what she thought about it and to switch sides without even asking if she wanted to communicate with any of them. They literally grabbed her by both hands and started dragging her to their side like some kind of toy. And this is no joke. She really likes that these two people keep dragging her into this mess. Because if you think about it, she's not interested in talking to either of them at all. She very abruptly took her hands away, showed that this situation made her very angry, and the two immediately calmed down. Then they asked her what happened to her, as if they didn't realize that they had just almost pissed her off. In the end, the girl said that the two of them seemed very close, and they were having fun without her, so she hinted that it was time for her to go somewhere. They didn't stop her so as not to make it worse and not to spoil the impression of themselves, although they really wanted to. Finally, Ludia found herself in complete silence. This is exactly what she was missing, although probably it will not last long. At that moment, she just remembered how Rihanna said that if she needed any help at today's party, she could come to the West Lake. The girl is almost sure that she didn't mean this kind of help, but it at least helped her escape from these two. It looks like there is no one here. You can stay in this place for a couple of hours, depending on how long the party lasts. The girl does not plan to return there in the near future, because she will feel better, calmer, and safer here. At first, she thought that there would be someone here who could help her, as Rihanna said, but this emptiness also suits her. Ludia sat down on the bench, closed her eyes, and began to listen to the sounds around her. They were so calming that she would come here every day if only she had time. And there is also a very beautiful view here. She had never seen anything like this before and didn't even know that such landscapes exist in this area. If there was a chance, she would build herself a small house here and live happily. But unfortunately, she will have to leave here very soon. The girl is resting peacefully. Her body is in complete harmony when suddenly she feels someone grab her by the shoulder. Immediately after that, she heard a familiar voice, then opened her eyes, saw the prince in front of her, and did not believe that this was possible. He started apologizing for making her wait, although they had not agreed to meet here. I wonder what he was talking about. She asked him if Princess Rihanna had told him where she might be, because there could be no other explanation for his appearance. Of course, he admitted that it had. The guy asked if he could sit with her, and she didn't mind. So she agreed and started waiting for him to say something else. It's a very awkward moment. The situation around is very embarrassing. She simultaneously likes everything that's happening, but at the same time, there are some funny feelings inside. The girl still hasn't figured out why they need this, but they clearly want her to become empress more than she does. Although in reality, who is there to deceive? She herself dreams of becoming an empress. She just doesn't believe that it's as easy as they say. Only if she becomes empress and then suddenly returns to her world, it will be terrible. So before doing all this, you need to think everything through. And she will also be very ashamed in front of the real heroine, who should become the empress, but will not become one. Meanwhile, he noticed that she was thinking about something, so he asked what was bothering her the most right now. She replied that everything is different, and then said that it is not so important because this time can be spent pleasantly without talking about bad things. She also says that she was very struck by how strange it was that they met here, because he appeared literally a minute after she sat down on this bench. And he replied that in fact, there was a reason why he came here today. Of course, she was very interested to know what it was. He looked at her with a mysterious look, as usual, making her feel embarrassed, as if he was doing it on purpose. She couldn't even imagine that he would tell her, but more about that later because time flew by. And now the next day has come. Elian came running to her in the morning. She didn't warn about it, and she also asked what's wrong with her face. Ludia explained that in fact she didn't sleep last night. My friend is a very curious person. She immediately demanded details because she already felt that this was something interesting. The girl said that she was at the lake, and Elian reacted as if she had heard something more surprising. At that moment, she didn't notice how she began to remember that conversation with the prince. It was magical and unforgettable. Then he became interested in finding out who he was for her, how she perceived him, and in general, whether she saw her future with him. It was a very easy and at the same time difficult question, because telling the truth is much harder. While she was remembering this, her friend was already a little angry that she was being ignored and reminded that the main event was starting soon, and if they didn't hurry, it would be very bad. The girl decided to laugh at her. She said that when she saw them together yesterday, it seemed to her that they got along quite well, although everything was absolutely the opposite. My friend asked me to never say such disgusting things again, because she and that witch are enemies who can never be friends under any circumstances. And after that, she said that the phrase, "get along well," is about the two of them. And at that moment, Ludia wanted to repeat her friend's phrase that they too would never be able to be friends with her. At some point, the girl couldn't stand it. She still took her hand away from her, because no matter how hard she tried to restrain herself, to react normally to these touches, she couldn't. Elian suddenly admitted that she was a little ashamed of yesterday, although the girl had never heard such words from her before. This is something amazing. She feels like she put him in a difficult situation for no reason. But is this really the first time she's decided to apologize for it? The girl is behaving so strangely that Ludia can't get used to it, and she is also alarmed by the fact that this is probably not just like that. But to calm the girl down, she said that everything is fine, even though it is not so. It's very interesting to figure out what the real reason is that her friend is constantly trying to please her, although usually it was the other way around. And in the meantime, they had already arrived in the main hall. The host asked everyone who was participating to take their seats and not make noise so that he could be heard well. Finally, the very moment that everyone has been waiting for so long has begun. Only it seems that the girl knows much more than the others. It wasn't for nothing that she talked to the prince yesterday. As a result, the sculpture of His Highness the First Prince was sold for 3,000 platinum coins. Duke Molian, father of the current empress, set today's record without expecting it. And in the meantime, they took out that very last item of the auction, the scandalous portrait of His Highness the Crown Prince. Given its value, the painting can only be seen by the winner and no one else. People started competing. They named huge sums for which you can buy several mansions. Some who wanted to name a relatively small amount were upset because now there is no point in them even participating. And then Ludia raises her number and says that she is ready to pay 4,000 for the painting. Elian is already starting to get angry because she wasn't ready to compete on such amounts, but she still offered 1,000 more. She felt a strong excitement, but suddenly that witch joined in and began doubling the amount with such a calm face, as if she had added only a few kopecks. She really likes to see the faces of other people who understand that they can't compete with her, and it's better to retreat right away. Some are still puzzled as to how people can be willing to pay so much money for one painting. At the very last second, when time for the competition was already running out, Ludia offered 10,000, and it is unlikely that anyone will be able to offer more than this amount. She is ready to pay the entire amount at once, and does not even look back to see if someone is ready to offer more. After that, she calmly went out into the corridor. She was in an absolutely calm mood, and suddenly the girl heard someone approaching her. Rihanna approached her with a smile to ask how she liked the painting, but for some reason the girl looked at her with a dissatisfied look and said that this was some kind of deception or mistake, because the picture was not at all what was promised. This is not a portrait with the Crown Prince as a model. This is a portrait painted by the Crown Prince himself. It turns out that there was never a portrait of him at all, in which case she became interested in asking what they would do if someone else had bought this painting, to which the girl replied that the painting would have been lost on the way and they would have simply returned the money. Ludia wondered if the girl had considered the possibility that she would not go to the Western Lake or was sure that this was going to happen. But overall, she simply admired this carefully thought-out plan. It was brilliant. It turns out that that evening when they talked, he told her that he came for one reason. He should have asked her if she minded if he painted her in the portrait and explained that it was very important to him. That day, everything was for the first time for her. That's where he painted that very portrait. But if she had refused, he would have had to come up with something. She became a model for a painting for the first time, although she had no idea that she would actually buy it for such a huge amount of money. Then she felt like his gaze was literally taking him apart piece by piece, and she was also embarrassed and hoped that he didn't see it. Maybe that look charmed her because she really couldn't take her eyes off him. This man became for her not just a handsome guy, but someone without whom she can no longer imagine her life. If she knew that it was absolutely mutual, then everything would move much faster. Meanwhile, the girl asks about buying the painting, or rather whether she can interpret this as the fact that Ludia also has an interest in the prince. To this, she also responded with a question, asked if she became the crown princess. What would happen after that, as if this meant that she agreed to do as they wanted. The girl also asked if she could control Lady Rihanna, and after this question, Rihanna was very surprised. And of course, I asked why she was interested in this. Had she really started to hate her for some reason? Ludia explained that it wasn't that she hated her. She just wanted to warm up. After that, she said that Rihanna deliberately brought her to the lake and arranged a meeting with the prince, making sure that she could not escape anymore. Rihanna just smiled at this and replied that she was very glad that her plan worked so well, which meant that she was not denying anything. After that, the girl said that if Ludia needed a villain, she could contact her as much as she wanted. She has been protecting this child for over 20 years, and if she is the only one who bears the blame, then she does not mind and immediately warned that she is capable of worse things. The girl certainly didn't expect such an answer from her. It sounded a little frightening, although that was probably not the point at all. In the end, she simply asked the lady to put off her anger for later so as not to ruin such a beautiful day for anyone. Meanwhile, since she won the portrait, it's time to enjoy the bonus prize. A date with this charming man. She's already wondering if he's come up with something unusual. If only she knew how fast his heart starts beating every time she smiles at him. The world he lived in before was full of people who hid their true intentions in order to antagonize him or use him. But Ludia turned out to be completely different. From the moment he first learned her name, she constantly attracted his attention. And then he tells her that all this time he was holding back so as not to say this phrase ahead of time, but now he is ready and really wants her to know that he wants to stay close to her in the future, because when they are not together, he feels very bad. Every time he opened his eyes, he looked for her nearby. And then he became very upset when he realized that she was nowhere to be found. Even though they've only known each other for a few days, he's already convinced that they were made for each other. He also said that from the first day he dreamed that she would tell him the same thing that he had just told her. While she was listening to him, she was as if under hypnosis, because she would have wanted to tell him all these words too, if she had had a little more courage. And he also admitted that he really wants her to be continuity and eternity for him.